shot and killed back in February. California Highway Patrol says at least 2 people are dead after a multi-vehicle crash on I-5 near Bakersfield. No New Year's Eve brief for the UN Security Council. Members approving a resolution to support the Syrian peace deal. It was brokered by Russia and Turkey. It includes peace talks, but for the time being, they don't include the U.S. You're listening to ABC News.
Hiring is the most challenging part of my job. It's really hard. The searching, the sorting through resumes. Most people don't have the right experience.
We started using ZipRecruiter about 3 months ago. Right from the start, you could tell it was going to make hiring a lot easier. One click and my job was posted to 200 plus job boards, all the top sites.
All of the candidates came to my dashboard, and it's easy to compare them. Thumbs up if I liked them, thumbs down if I didn't. No emails and attachments, printing up docs, phone calls, none of that.
And I couldn't believe the number of great applicants we got. I had the person we needed within 1 week. I don't know how we hired before ZipRecruiter.
Whether you're looking to fill one position or 20, find the best candidates with ZipRecruiter, where your job is just one click away from 200 plus job sites. ZipRecruiter, the fastest way to hire. And right now you can try ZipRecruiter free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/ABC Radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/ABC Radio. ZipRecruiter.com/ABC Radio.
A dive team is searching Lake Erie for a small plane that went missing Thursday night after taking off from an airport in Cleveland with 6 people on board.
The FAA and the NTSB will determine, they'll actually do a comprehensive investigation that takes months once the aircraft is recovered and the technical equipment on the aircraft is extracted. Then they will advise us what the cause was.
Khalid Bahor runs Burke Lakefront Airport, where that flight originated. Well, they probably didn't think the ride was going to last this long. 17 Sky cabin passengers and their ride operator were stuck in the air for hours last night at California's Knott's Berry Farm.
The ordeal lasting hours. For about 3 hours, Knott's Berry Farm workers tried to get the ride unstuck, and then finally the fire department was called in. Firefighters initially tried to get a ladder to the rider stuck 130 feet in the air, but that ladder wasn't long enough. Efforts to use a gravitational system to lower the ride on its own were unsuccessful. Then the last option, one by one, riders were lowered in harnesses by rope. Alex Stone, ABC News, Los Angeles.
A music promoter who is sometimes described as the Beatles' first manager has died. Alan Williams was 86. He played an important role in finding the young Beatles club dates in Liverpool, England, and in Hamburg, Germany, before they started on that long string of hits. This is ABC News.
ADT presents What to Consider When Considering Home Security. An ADT sign is more than a sign. It's a line in the sand. On one side, your family. On the other, an uncertain world.
For over 140 years, more people have chosen ADT to help prevent crime than anyone else. Get ADT starting at just $28.99 a month.
Tested, trusted, proven ADT.
With 36-month contract for licensing and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont in the Pass area for the final day of the year, look for cloudy skies with showers. We could have a thunderstorm. Our high 53 with winds to 20 miles an hour. I'll have showers tonight. Going to be cloudy. I'll have 41 with winds to 20 miles an hour. New Year's Day looks partly sunny. Our high 50. We'll have winds to 30 miles an hour. For Redlands, we'll have showers. We could have a thunderstorm today. It'll be mostly cloudy with a high 56. For Palm Springs, we'll have mostly cloudy skies with showers. We could have a thunderstorm. Our high 63. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Take KMET 1490 AM with you everywhere you go by downloading our free smartphone apps found on the KMET website, KMET1490am.com. You can also go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store on your phone to download the free app. Now you can listen live or play any of your favorite programmers' podcasts using your smartphone. Don't miss out on the free KMET smartphone apps. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
And welcome. It's time for Constitution Radio right here on KMET 1490 AM. And it is the New Year's Eve edition. We were preempted by football on Christmas Eve. We replayed the prior Saturday's program online. For those of you who missed it, definitely go check it out. Nigel Ennis, Chad Prather, both fantastic guests. I've gotten numerous emails telling me it's probably the best show we've ever done. That said, speaking of best shows I've ever done, every show is great because of the man that works with me, Alex Ferguson. Alex, you're on the air with me. How you doing, brother? And I hear nothing.
I say I'm blushing all the way down to my toenails. Thank you for that.
Blushing all the way down to your toenails.
Yeah.
Yes. Blushing toenails. That's pretty impressive. Everything you do is impressive, so.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, you're very welcome, sir. All right, we've got some interesting stuff to talk about. And actually, the first topic today is by request of leftists. They think I've been ignoring this, like I'm trying to protect Mr. Trump, and it's not true. And so I thought it'd be a great way to start the program. Have you heard about the Emoluments Clause?
No.
All right, what the Emoluments Clause is, and in the Constitution is, let me read it to you. It's Article 1, Section 9. It says, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office or of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Emolument is defined by the 1828 Webster's Dictionary as the profit arising from office or employment, that which is received as compensation for services or which is annexed to the possession of office as salary, fills, or prerequisites, profit, advantage, or gains in general. So it's basically personal economic benefit, basically, is what it is. Okay? You with me?
It sounds like Hillary Clinton to me.
Well, the idea here is by the Founding Fathers was to protect us from foreign influence. They wish to, the Founding Fathers, when I say they were wish to protect us because there was a Tory population that were trying to undermine the new government. Great Britain had failed to recognize the sovereignty of the United States. And, I mean, the Constitution itself was a traitorous act against the Crown, from their opinion. I mean, if during the War of 1812, if James Madison had been captured, he'd have been hung for treason because Britain still saw the United States as being a part of the British Empire. And so the Founding Fathers were heavily worried about a potential problem of corruption in the new constitutional government, mainly from outside influence through the gift of money or physical presence by wealthy persons or powerful governments. I mean, that had doomed republics earlier in history, and they saw the exchanges of gifts and money as dangerous. Now, that said, and they saw it as one of the reasons, one of the components of the kind of aristocratic and monarchical rule that plagued Europe. I mean, how could an office holder serve the people when one has the privileges of a noble? John Adams said that when the King of England grants titles and salaries to loyalists, it turns the crown itself into a private interest. Okay, so there's the fear.
Well, you got William Wallace. They just did a special on him last night or the night before, and there were the noblemen, the Scottish noblemen, taking bribes and titles to betray their own people.
Oh, exactly. Well, the Founding Fathers consider royalty itself, and anything that suggested a potential connection to a conflict of interest when it came to a system of liberty, too. I mean, that kind of ruination could be detrimental to the survival of the fledgling United States government. So they considered the receiving of foreign gifts dangerous. But here's the thing. The giving of such gifts in Europe was routine in diplomacy. I mean, that's, favored status, that kind of stuff. But Holland, and now you and I have talked about the Saxon system, right? And how the Saxon system, which really first appeared in northern Germany, kind of worked its way west. And the Saxon system, which is limited government, no one's above the rule of law, including the king. Things like that. You're innocent till proven guilty. All of that, comes from that Saxon system. Well, as it swept westward, it also went through Holland. And so the Dutch also had been influenced by Saxon history of limited government and all that. Well, in 1651, the Dutch had adopted a ban on gifts for its ambassadors unless they were declared and approved by Parliament. And the rest of the European countries thought that was absolutely nuts. Well, that's kind of where the American founding fathers, they were following that example. So now suddenly the Democrats, now that they think it's to their advantage, they're suddenly strict constitutionalists, and they're pulling out of the closet the Emolument Clause, saying, hey, Mr. Trump, if he becomes president, he's in violation of that because of all of his foreign dealings and business. And so to respond to that, on November 30th, Mr. Trump tweeted that he will be leaving his great business in total. Now, the question is, does that mean is he handing it over to his children, or what is he doing? America's Office of Government Ethics says he should divest from his business interests. In other words, sell or give away his business interests to parties not connected to him.
That's much too complicated, though. His holdings are vast and complex.
Absolutely. I agree. So now let's think about this for a second here. The primary concern of the Founding Fathers, foreign gifts and bribes. The Emolument Clause pretty much covers all personal economic benefits one might receive from foreign governments.
But that's like gifts, right?
Right. Well, hang on. In any personal economic benefits from foreign governments. So if a foreigner stays in one of Trump's hotels, was that a benefit, economic benefit from a foreign government?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not a gift. It's simply a transaction.
Right. It's a part of doing business. Okay. How about the fact that the Industrial and Agricultural Bank of China, whose majority stakeholder is the Chinese government, rents office space in New York City's Trump Tower?
It's still a
did he get his emoluments directly from them? No, he got it from Trump Tower. It's a part of doing business. Here's the one that gets real sticky. How about the fact that Trump is working on erecting a new 35-story Trump office, Buenos Aires development, and the only thing holding it back at the moment is the fact that it is awaiting final approval from that city's government. Well, if he doesn't get that approval before he actually takes off as president, could that approval be seen as a gift to the new president? It's sticky, doesn't it?
Too tricky by far.
Yeah. Well, now, questions regarding the Emoluments Clause is nothing new. But if you read the Emoluments Clause, there's something very interesting in there. Let me read it to you. Listen very carefully to the words. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office or profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. There's two things that jump out at me there. How about you?
Well, let me hear your two things.
All right. The last one is from any king, prince, or foreign state. So anything that's not directly from government, even though it's a foreign investment or whatever, is fine. He can make a profit off of foreign investments. That's no problem, as long as it's not coming from a king, a prince, or a foreign state. So, and majority of his business dealings are in the private sector and doesn't involve kings, princes, and foreign states. The other one is without the consent of Congress. If he goes into office and Congress says, well, you know what, that one with the Buenos Aires, we're going to say that one's fine. And they write a resolution and it gets approved, he's good. So now then the question comes to trust. Do they trust enough to pass such resolutions, first of all? Second of all, do you really want to create a precedent of Congress doing that when you know it could be around the corner in the future?
Hillary Clinton on training wheels.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton on training wheels. Well, you know, President Martin Van Buren received horses and rugs and pearls and other goods from the Imam of Muscat. And he had had a special resolution from Congress passed to let him split the goods up between the State Department and the Treasury. In today's quagmire, governmental quagmire, it reminds me of what George Washington talked about when it came to foreign entanglements. George Washington often mentioned the term foreign entanglements, and while more often than not he meant that we should not inject ourselves into foreign entanglements, that we have nothing that have nothing to do with American affairs, he also was warning us that we should not invite foreign entanglements to come to our shores as well. And I think that's a part of the reason for the Emoluments Clause. Now, with Trump's vast global scope of business interests, many of which remain shrouded in secrecy, some of them may very well pose to be a potential danger if Donald Trump does not decide to totally divest himself from them. And as you've pointed out, that's a complex affair.
Especially when you have Marxist governments that involve themselves in the capitalist system. That's fascism, but it's a sticky wicket.
Well, sure it is. Well, now let's go back to something. Remember when Barack Obama received his emolument for the Nobel Peace Prize? And there were Republicans in Congress that said, hey, Emoluments Clause. Justice Department, and granted Eric Holder was Obama's buddy, but nonetheless, the Justice Department concluded that because the prize was awarded by the Nobel Committee, which is not an agent or representative of the Norwegian government, there was no violation. So once again, any of his profits, economic benefits that he receives that does not come by way of an agent or representative of a government directly, well, then he's, that doesn't get Trump completely off the hook. I mean, situations like I mentioned earlier with 35-story Trump office, Buenos Aires development, waiting for a city's government approval, could be a sticky situation. Approval could be seen as a gift from that government to the new president. But so either Trump needs to separate himself from those situations somehow, or Congress needs to pass a resolution saying, okay, that one's fine, we give our consent. But I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think the Emoluments Clause is a big deal. It was written to protect our country from foreign meddling and influence. And I don't want us creating precedents that future Democrat presidents will jump all over. But most of Trump's personal economic benefits are not from foreign dignitaries or governments, but from private sources. Whether they are international or not, those monies do not fall under the scrutiny of the Emoluments Clause, in my opinion. Therefore, while there are segments of Trump's business dealings that must be dealt with because of the Emoluments Clause, I think most of his income from foreign investments and sources don't apply, and Congress can deal with the rest as necessary, or Trump can divest where necessary. I think, in all honesty, the problem is not nearly as huge as the liberal left is making it out to be, but the problem does exist. But
to simplify it, couldn't you just say don't take bribes?
Yeah. Yeah, but then you'd have the lawyers say, yeah, but what's the definition of a bribe? And then they'll come up with 14,000 different possibilities.
Well,
that goes to the difference of the original intent and the legal interpretation.
Emoluments is just too many syllables for me.
Well, I tell you what, this Emoluments Clause is huge to the left right now, but when it was the Nobel Peace Prize, it wasn't, and it's simply because of trust. They trusted Obama, they don't trust Trump, and that's why it's a big deal in the end.
Well, I'm saying that when Hillary was the Attorney General, not the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, she was taking in emoluments left and right.
Sure, she was, but it was in the name of the Clinton Foundation, not her.
Well,
that was the excuse.
That's too tricky by far.
Yeah. Well, I think to wrap this up, the Emoluments Clause is important. I don't think that Trump is going to be in violation in a manner that the left is making it out to be, but there is that potential sticky situation, as you've put it. And so he needs to either divest himself from those particular situations, or Congress needs to start passing resolutions. And once again, that goes back to, does Congress trust him enough to believe that those aren't bribes, those aren't conflicts of interest, those aren't problematic? And personally, I know it's tricky. I'd just sign everything over to the kids and be done with it for the 4 or 8 years. That's what I would do. All right, when we return, Mr. Alex Ferguson has a book to talk to us about a little more. Plus, we have two other big stories of the week to discuss. You are listening to Constitution Radio on KMET 1490 AM. And if you want to call in and put in your 2 cents, 951-922-3532. See you in just a moment.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at AllStar Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. AllStar Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
And welcome back. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs right here on KMET 1490 AM. And my co-host with me is Alex Ferguson, and he's always got a great project he's working on. Right now he's working his way through a book that he's been talking about when he gets the chance. We give him some time right now to discuss this incredible book. Give us the title and author once again.
The War on Cops by, what's her name?
Well, I thought you had it right in front of you there. You have your notes in front of you is what it is.
I got my notes in front of me. I don't have the book right this second. Can't think of the name.
All right, well, that's okay. We'll get there. Go ahead.
Anyway, what we have here, I've gone over this book time and time again, and the reason is that it is an exhaustive study.
Right. Heather McDonald, by the way.
Heather McDonald, there you go.
All right, go ahead.
It's an exhaustive study of what is essentially a Marxist war on law enforcement at every level.
Mm-hmm.
And as you read it, you keep coming across these studies, and it seems like they all say the same thing within a few percentage points. And what she's doing is she's taking studies that have been done by various institutions, and time again, they show that the Black Lives Matter movement is a lie.
Right.
It's a lie from the beginning to the end. What we've got here is the most perfect political system ever devised by mankind being systematically betrayed and dismantled by a despicable coalition of was named chaos. That's what they're they're going for. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just laughing because I totally remember that, and it's chaos. Because when you create division, you've created. Well, it goes back to the Hegelian dialectic. You create a problem, then you create an opposition to the problem, and then you create your solution to the problem. Black Lives Matter is perfect. You create the problem, racism, then the opposition to the problem, Black Lives Matter, and the solution to the problem, more governmental control.
Well, it's this beautiful communist concept of misdirection.
Right.
You claim that racism is the problem, and then you fight racism when you're not fighting the actual problem, but you're spending billions of dollars on something that is essentially a non-factor.
Right.
America is no longer, may have once been a racist country, but it sure as heck isn't anymore. I know lots of conservatives and Republicans, and there just isn't a racist among them. But what we have
racism does exist, but I think it's actually in the Democrat Party, but that's my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We could go into, that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But there was a thing called, now this is talk about tricky words, gobbledygook, deinstitutionalization. That's 22 letters. And it's a big movement in the 1960s and 70s. And not only did it begin this movement to empty the jails, but it shuttered most state mental hospitals. In fact, jails have become society's primary mental institution.
Sure.
They keep them there. And of course, as usual, they blame the Republicans. They say Ronald Reagan is the one who emptied well, no, Ronald Reagan was reacting to lawsuits in the 60s and 70s that required that people be allowed to leave these institutions if they wanted to, and of course they wanted to. So we have the craziness of homelessness. 1/3 of those homeless people, a lot of them are drug addicts and alcoholics, but 1/3 of them are strictly mental patients. They should be put in an institution where they can't hurt themselves or other people.
Well, now we've got a whole segment of the mentally ill population also demanding rights, like the transgenders also.
Well, it's just another aspect of the concept of chaos. They want people to be wandering the streets and causing petty crime and insanity. I used to guard the Ronald Reagan building, the state building in downtown L.A. on the edge of Skid Row.
Right.
Those people are just plain nuts. They walk into traffic, they throw bottles at people. It's a constant item. Now you say, well, that's not that big a deal. It is when you consider that our society is dying the death of 1,000 cuts, and this is just one of them. When you say that you can tell they're lying because their lips are moving, you're talking about liberals.
Right.
We have to stop listening to them. We have to start ignoring them because they're leading us into purgatory here. Now, for instance, you have this misdirection. There's a woman named Gwen Rice in Chicago. She's a board member of the Developing Communities Project. She says, I'm tired of blaming the parents. The services for the poor are paltry. It boggles the mind. There are policies that have mitigated against black progress. What needs to happen is a change of corporate greed and insensitivity. Now, that all sounds very interesting and a solid indictment, except for the fact that we've spent $22 trillion on welfare.
Right.
This idea that America has abandoned the poor to fend for themselves, we've bankrupted ourselves.
Well, I mean, the Great Society and the War on Poverty and all sort of stuff. And, people ask me, so what do you think of the War on Poverty? And I said, well, the poverty haven't cried uncle yet. But you know, it pumping money into it is obviously not the solution. So what is?
Well, it's a good way to bankrupt the society, and that's what they want. We've now got a $20 trillion national debt, and that's equal almost exactly to the amount of money we've spent on these welfare projects, which have not moved the needle. There's just as many people in poverty now as there were.
Well, they pay them to stay in poverty, and when someone's impoverished, they follow orders much more easily.
Oh yeah, they're dependent. It's a lot like Ben Franklin said. The worst thing you can do for the poor is make them comfortable in their poverty.
Right.
Now, here's a point that I come away with, and this is the last point I'll make on it.
Okay.
Obama's inability to say the word Islamic terrorist reminds us of nothing so much as a similar inability of American conservatives to say the word communist. We've been shamed. I just wrote I think it'll be in the Political Pistachio. I just wrote a thing, The Sins of the Jackasses, a bill.
Yeah, we'll get that on today. But go ahead.
Well, what it is there are 22 particulars of horrible things that have been done by political movement in the United States. They've all been perpetrated by the liberals and the Democrats, and they've all been blamed on the Republicans. You know, we don't stand up for ourselves and say, wait a minute, Jim Crow was a Democrat operation. You know, whatever it is, the internment of the Japanese. 22 particulars that they're lying about, and we let them get away with it. We have to turn around and say, no, stop. It's not the policemen are not killing blacks for fun. The black community's culture has been destroyed by the welfare system, and as a consequence, they can't manage. Not all, but so many of them can't manage to raise their children in a decent environment that produces healthy citizens.
Right.
So that's my ending statement on this book. If you want to know anything about this Black Lives Matter, check out the war on cops.
And now, does that mean you're going to have a new book for us to start on next week?
Yeah, it's called The Communist.
Okay.
Coincidentally, it's about
fantastic. All right, now.
Go ahead.
You know, it's funny as you talk about the communists and all that, because the next big story of the week, AllStar Collision, big story of the week, AllStar Collision, AllStarCI.com, is exit, stage left. You know, I'm not sure if Obama is just trying to do as much damage as possible because of how communist he is or how Muslim he is, or because he is more like a jilted lover who's being, you know, thrown out of a relationship and he doesn't like it. But whatever it is, it's unreal, the damage he's trying to do on the way out. I mean, we've got, you know, the UN snub, well, I shouldn't say snub, but the UN, the reckless UN abstaining from voting to protect Israel against, you know, ridiculous UN resolution, which basically declares that Israel's property is not theirs. We've got, you know, here's the thing. I'll ask you this. Is what Barack Obama, what he's doing on the way out with all of this ridiculous stuff, that being one of them, he's unleashed 3,853 new regs, 97,110 pages of new red tape. This is, I mean, as he's on his way out. Is this because he's just trying to get his ideology in as much as possible before he goes out, or is it that he's trying to box in President-elect Donald Trump?
Both. It's not an either-or choice. It's simply both. The guy is a dedicated Marxist. He wants Marxist policies. At the same time, he wants chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we'll get if Trump can't wade through this mess.
Let's talk about some of these. I want to get your opinion. Okay, so the decision to sanction Russian entities for election hacking, related hacking, is. What do you think of that?
I think that the outrages that have been committed against our nation in the last 8 years that have gone unanswered, He says, oh, you can't start a war over this. You can't start a war. We're not saying start a war. We're saying put some sanctions on, put some leverage on these people, and he has done nothing. But now that it insulted his candidate for election, now he's willing to do something. Well, it's nuts.
Legacy, maybe.
It's legacy. It's spoiled brat frustration. He's just going nuts.
All right. How about the refusal to veto the UN Security Council resolution? Basically, what it allows or it condemns Israeli settlement activity, and essentially says, "Yeah, Palestine, we are all for you." What's your thoughts about that one?
He had already telegraphed that years ago when he was discussing the situation, and he referred to the pre-67 borders. Well,
you know what? Here's the thing. I thought the spoils of war was spoils of war, first of all. Second of all, biblically, what the land that Israel has is but a fraction of what they're supposed to own.
It's a tiny little spot on the map.
Right.
And when you look at what the other countries around Israel are doing to their own people, like Syria, where they're dropping barrel bombs on residential neighborhoods, terrorizing and murdering families from one end to the other, and then we jump on Israel for building apartment buildings.
Well, remember, crazy. The argument is Israel's the problem in the Middle East. If we can just handcuff them, then there'll be peace. But here's the thing.
That.
Just recent development. So what was it, 10 years ago, 2005, when Israel pulled out of Gaza, what happened? All it did was create a closer launch pad for missiles.
Exactly.
For the Muslims, and the war got worse, not better.
Exactly. But see, the Marxist never looks at results. He looks at the politically correct position. And
whatever's going to help their agenda and their narrative, right?
That's what makes it correct. If it favors the revolution, we're for it. If it's not, it doesn't matter what the facts are. We're against it.
All right, how about this one? Obama has, permanently, it's not permanent, but this is the way it's being reported, permanently banned oil and gas drilling across large swaths of the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans, closing off 1.6 million acres of western land to development, and scrapped the last vestiges of a registration system used largely in Muslim immigrants. So you've got, first let's start with the drilling. Banning oil and gas drilling in the Atlantic and Arctic.
That totally hamstrings our economy and gives him the benefit of watching America suffer and decline.
Now, he did this by executive order, and it says that he's allowed to by executive order. First of all, it can be reversed by executive order, and at worst, through congressional piece of legislation. Closed off 1.6 million acres of western land to development. However, at the same time, he has grabbing land through the monument, calling them monuments at the same time.
Well, it seems to me that unless I'm mistaken, some of that, when you call something a monument, it becomes permanent.
Right. And here's the thing. That's based on a piece of legislation. What does the Constitution say? The Constitution says that federal government can't take land unless it's paid for and through the consent of Congress for the purpose of needful buildings. I mean, not Congress, I'm sorry, the state legislatures. If the state legislatures did not consent to it, federal government can't take it. So what he's doing is an unconstitutional move. I don't care what a piece of legislation says. A piece of legislation is unconstitutional.
Well, we agree completely, but trying to get the liberals to understand that is like throwing marbles at a kite.
He scrapped the last vestiges of a registration system used largely in Muslim immigrants. In other words, I don't care who you are, what you are, or if you're a terrorist, come on in.
Again, chaos. That's what he's after. He's doing everything he can, leaving the border open, letting the drugs come in, giving the 2,000 guns in Fast and Furious. Don't listen to what the liberals say. Watch what they do. And what he's doing is systematically destroying the United States.
Yeah, you got John Kerry. The one that really got me was it said to Israel, either you need to be Jewish or Democratic. You can't be both.
Well, the claim is that if they're Democratic, then the Arabs with a high birth rate will soon outnumber them, and they won't be able to be Jewish.
There you go. Okay. When we return after the break, we're going to go through a few more of these exit stage left, and then we're going to talk about something that Trump is doing to go against what Obama's doing. Can't wait to tell you. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President, Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
The true patriots of AllStar Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by AllStar Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Check us out online at KMET1490am.com.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. While we were off mic, the engineer was asking some questions for clarification, and I'm going to assume that there are some listeners out there that have similar questions. So I want to do a little clarification here, and it's about the UN resolution telling Israel that they cannot build settlements anymore, and they need to evacuate, matter of fact, their settlements out of these areas, East Jerusalem, West Bank, and they've already done so in Gaza back in 2005, as I mentioned earlier. Those areas, understand, were captured by Israel after during the 6-Day War in 1967. All right? And basically what the UN is saying is those captured lands don't belong to you. They belong to the Palestinians, which, by the way, never existed in history. In fact, they are basically refugees from other Islamic countries that never were allowed to return. That's a whole different story. That's why I don't even like using the term Palestinians. Technically, they don't exist. And Israel's being told that those lands are occupied lands. You captured them in wartime. They're occupied, and you shouldn't be able to settle in them. And that was what, like hundreds of settlements, like 144 settlements in these lands by Jews, by Israelites. Well, the engineer brought up, Sean brought up the point, well, what's going to keep the UN from doing that to the United States? And hey, you can't settle your own lands. And that's a great point. I had brought up when it came to Indian lands. So they're going to start telling us that, hey, that belonged to the Indians long ago. But then, Alex, and I want you to explain this to the audience, then you brought up, well, what about the American Southwest?
American Southwest, according to the Mexican nationalists, and this was taught, by the way, by MECHA, which was a student organization in high schools and colleges all over the Southwest for years. They've knocked it off now because they got caught at it, I guess. Mm-hmm. But what they're saying is that this is Aztlan. This is the land that belonged to the Aztecs and the Mayas, and that the white man has no business here, and that it has to be returned to the Mexican War was a land grab and illegal, all this stuff. But what they're saying is that a half a dozen states that are part of the United States today need to go back to Mexico. I guess they don't have enough failed states. And
now that land was gained through the Mexican-American War. So from their point of view, how's that any different than Israel gaining the land during the war in '67? Well, so to them, it's the same difference.
In fact, we did pay $16 million as well as win the war, but
we did that voluntarily too. We offered it.
We couldn't have paid the $16 million if we hadn't won the war. And at that time, Mexico was under the rule of Santa Anna, who was a dictator, and the promises that our settlers had entered that territory under were abolished. So there's a lot of wrinkles to this stuff that the Marxist never brings up. Right. They make it an oversimplified bad guy, good guy thing, and then we're supposed to react to their fantasy instead of the reality on the ground.
All right, now let's get back to some of the stuff Obama's pulling. NDAA just signed. There's a provision in the NDAA that essentially sets up a Ministry of Truth. Have you heard about this?
I'm not sure.
Okay, you're gonna get a real kick out of this, especially since you're the 1984 Orwellian enthusiast here. See, the Democrats and leftist media, they're always calling anything they don't agree with politically fake news, right? And they have this attitude that they believe in freedom of speech and freedom of the press, as long as it fits their narrative. Otherwise, it must be censored or silenced. Well, and, among Marx's most famous quotes, the meaning of peace is the absence of opposition to socialism. In George Orwell's book, 1984, Ministry of Truth was the propaganda ministry. It was the job of the governmental office to falsify history and events when they did not fit the government's narrative, and to introduce newspeak so as to make sure the language used was acceptable, even when it was contrary to the truth. I'm sure you remember this from your time that you read the book. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Orwell's own version of political correctness.
That's why my pen name is Winston Smith.
Yeah, there you go. Now, countries like Germany are in the process of creating their own Ministry of Truth in the wake of the Democrat Party spread rumor of fake news during the 2016 election. Facebook is in the process of employing an army of liberal left fact checkers so as to combat fake news and censor out any news that does not fit the liberal left narrative. The Obama administration is in the process of creating America's Ministry of Truth. Zero Hedge is where I got this from. It's called the. Are you ready for this? This is newspeak if ever there was. Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act. It's a part of the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, which Obama quietly signed into law. It's and that part of the NDAA is Senate Bill 2943, and it authorizes appropriations principally for the Department of Defense and for the Department of Energy and national security programs, provides vital benefits, so on and so forth. But also what it does, buried deep inside the provisions of that, is a little thing that is essentially America's version of the Ministry of Truth. The Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act of 2016 is hidden in there and is a double down when it comes to liberals' war on fake news, introduced by Adam Kinzinger and Ted Lieu, seeking a whole government approach without the bureaucratic restrictions to counter foreign disinformation manipulation, which they believe threaten the world's security and stability, unquote. In other words, it gives them, without outside bureaucratic restrictions or checks and balances, the ability to protect us by deciding what is and is not allowed when it comes to the news media.
Well, fake news is hate speech, right?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
We got a freedom of the press and we got a freedom of speech, but if you change it to hate speech and fake news, then you can regulate it.
Right, there you go.
All depends on how you play your terms.
Exactly. Okay, and then we've got, let's see. And then let's see. Here's my favorite, though, of all of this stuff, is Michelle Obama. She says that remember, this is the woman who didn't. What was the word? She didn't.
She said it was the first time she'd ever been proud of her country.
Proud of her country. That's the word I'm looking for. First time she'd ever been around. Well, now she says, because Mr. Trump is going to be president. Here's the quote. Now we're feeling what not having hope feels like.
Well, yeah, if you're a Marxist.
Great answer.
It does feel that way for her.
Let's talk about the unorthodoxy of Trump. Before I do that, okay, remember the UN resolution thing? You know what Trump's answer to that is, right? He's proposed relocating the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem.
But again, that's another one of Obama's time bombs, because there's, as far as I understand it, there's no way to reverse the condemnation of Israel once it's been done.
Yeah, there is. Exit the UN. We're out of there.
I like it. Let me say this, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I have studied the history of American communism probably as much as anyone. And one of the things that I've discovered is that the founder of the United Nations is a guy named Alger Hiss. Alger Hiss was a cause célèbre on the side of the left for decades in America. They're talking about how innocent he was, and he was not a Soviet agent. We know now from the Nona and Soviet archives and memoirs and everything that he was, in fact, a Soviet agent, the most important Soviet agent they had. And I have checked the biographies. There was a time when I tried to write a biography of every American communist that I could find, and what I determined was that a huge number of them, I'd say maybe half of them, after World War II, they went into the UN. The UN was founded by an American communist agent and staffed by American communists. This whole thing is like the American Civil Liberties Union. It was devised in order to defend communists. Right. And of course, my saying that makes me a Joe McCarthy and a Red Baiter and a witch hunter and all this horrible stuff. Well, bull. I'm a patriotic, knowledgeable American speaking the truth that has been hidden for 50 years.
And through the UN and through their establishment standard, they have established a system on the way politics are supposed to run, the way politics are supposed to work, the way you're supposed to do things as a politician. And they hate Trump because he's unorthodox. He is outside of what they have established over all of these decades, and if not a century. One of my favorites is the CNN headline, and this is what it says. Trump is appointing people who hate the agencies they will lead. They don't understand that. Hey, he's doing everything different. It won't work. As if it's been working the way it's been working the way they want it to. Of course he's appointing people who hate the agencies they will lead. So they'll change those agencies to either operate in the manner that they should be operating or be eliminated.
The left sets up the definition of the terms and the rules of the game, and then has a hissy fit when we don't play along with them.
And when you talk about someone not willing to play along with the rules of that game, that's Mr. Trump. I mean, he's about as unorthodox as it gets. I mean, how and what a great move with all of his unorthodoxy. What a great way to slash and burn federal regulatory intrusion into state sovereignty. I mean, basically with Trump, if he is who he says he is, we have infiltrated their establishment, and we're going to change the problem from within. And he's appointing the people that seem to be right along that. And for me, I'm pretty jazzed to see it happen.
Well, that's why they're terrified, and that's why they're fighting back as hard as they are. They're using every tool they possibly can to hamstring this new president. Now,
if Trump is successful with what he's trying to do, and if he's being honest, because I still got the Jasmius, on the shoulder here. Remember, Jasmius doesn't trust the man, thinks he's just another New York liberal. So if Trump is indeed who he says he is, and he accomplishes what he's said he's going to accomplish, will we see the last breath of the Democrat Party in this country, at least for a while?
These are people they're like Freddy Krueger. They keep coming back. It's who they are.
Yeah, cockroaches, you can't get rid of them. they're inside the walls. Well, for decades, Republican consultants have been telling GOP candidates and politicians that conservatism loses, and being strong and loud offends the voters who sit on the fence. And the conventional wisdom has been that the left-wing voters always vote Democrat and the right-wing voters always vote Republican. So a person has to move to the middle to attract the ever-important moderate voters. And the problem is what we're found out in this election, and what I've always told my listeners from day one, the conventional wisdom is wrong. Most independents are not swing voters. Most are conservative, and they don't usually vote not because they don't care to vote, but because the Republican is often too close to the opposition to be worth a dang. And many Democrat voters are also conservative, but vote Democrat because they've been convinced that all Republicans are racist, evil bigots. The fact is, the propaganda of the Democrat Party has been very effective on the ill-informed.
The point is that if you give them a choice of voting for a liberal or a liberal, they'll probably vote for the liberal.
Yeah, because all Republicans are evil. And with that, we're out of time. Plug yourself.
Okay, conservativecannonade.org. I swear we're going to get this new stuff up soon. As soon as I can get the people to move on it.
DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. God bless America. God bless you. And God bless. And you know what? United we stand. Combined we kick butt. We'll see you next week. Right here on KMET, 1490 AM. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs.
The proceeding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
AM 1490 KMET, Banning, Redlands, Palm Springs.
From ABC News, I'm Daria.